Criminal Border is a 4-part visual novel series about an otaku virgin named Ninomai Itsuki, an unreliable, spineless boy who spends his time editing anime clip compilations, posting them online for hopes of minor fame. What a loser, am I right, guys? Whilst his dreams of grandeur remain unrealized, through a series of coincidences, his latest creation gives anyone the extreme, uncontrollable urge to... With the accidental creation of the world's first electronic drug, Itsuki ends up getting involved in the criminal underworld with a vast array of people he'll come to know as his friends and his enemies. Alright. Tell me you're an eroge without telling me you're an eroge. When I first heard the premise of Criminal Border, perhaps much like you, I was struck with the feeling of exasperation. I'm not against visual novels with ridiculous, ecchi premises. In fact, some of my top favorites go all in on that premise. But in visual novels that otherwise seem to take themselves seriously, such as the case with Criminal Border, it can feel like a forced gimmick just to meet the visual novel H-scene quota. But after giving it a chance, I can happily say my impression was wrong. Criminal Border might be an easy to write off visual novel due to its "this is such an eroge" premise, but the story and characters end up being deeper than you'd expect as it expands upon the criminal underworld that the protagonist Itsuki finds himself enveloped in. As you may know, this is written by the same guy who wrote 9-9, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So there's even more to look forward to. And despite Criminal Border's liminal state of translation, with the final part yet to be released, I can already see the series going in my top visual novels of 2025. So today I'm here to convince you why you should read Criminal Border, or Liminal Border, I guess, for those too weak to be a... Following Itsuki's discovery of his newly created electronic drug, he decides to determine whether or not his reaction was a fluke, so he tests it out on his neighbor, Rin, who is Itsuki's double-faced childhood acquaintance, who often ignores and looks down on him. Garnering another success, as Itsuki and the reader watch Rin uncontrollably masterfully remind you why you should be getting the 18+ patch, Rin looks past her initial anger to offer to buy the video from him. But Itsuki is both surprised and reluctant. Surprised that the Rin he's known since childhood had this side to her, and reluctant to let such a legally questionable digital drug out into the world. But Rin gives Itsuki a very lucrative offer, and in the end, they dive their way into the criminal underworld that Itsuki's never known and never wanted to be a part of. Since there's 3 episodes out now, I'm going to review each episode and talk about as much as I can without spoilers. Criminal Border Part 1 is where it all begins and is the perfect appetizer for what's to come. Much like 9-9, each part focuses on one heroine, and our first part focuses on Hina, a friendly and bubbly girl who ended up on a not-so-friendly path. Rin introduces Itsuki to Hina, and by also connecting with Hina's older brother Tatsuya, this is Itsuki's entry into the criminal world. Unlike 9-9, where I feel the first part was just lackluster and setup, I feel Criminal Border hooks the reader in more fluidly, tangentially related to Itsuki's character development, which I'll get more into later. Criminal Border 2 starts as Itsuki is beginning to get a feel for the underworld. He's had some conflict so far, but nothing too difficult. Part 2 focuses on the senpai and Ojo-sama Kotoko, who ends up heavily involved with Rin and Itsuki's business. Though she too is taking part in the underworld, she is friendly, refined, and easy to work with. This is the part of Criminal Border where things really start to take shape, including Itsuki's character growth as he begins to drop his weak-willed persona. I personally enjoyed this part more than the first part, especially because Kotoko is my second favorite heroine. So let's jump to the third part with my favorite heroine. Lolly time! Criminal Border Part 3 is easily the best one yet, as things really begin to accelerate into a very particular and interesting direction. The further we go along, the less I can realistically say about the plot, so I'm kind of grasping at straws here. But what I can say is that there's a tonal shift towards the end of the chapter that I feel foreshadows some nefarious happenings and a dramatic conclusion. Bruce excited. This chapter focuses on Meryl, the badass foreigner lolly with twin tails. Yes, waiter, I'd like to order 3 of those. Meryl, being my favorite, might have you think that's why I like chapter 3 the most, but I assure you it's because of the plot and the twists that come with. Criminal Border is getting better and better with each chapter. The characters are interesting, the plot has a clear direction, with its progression moving at a steady pace. The criminal underworld it presents is reasonably complex, and every plot twist so far has you on the edge of your seat, if you aren't already edging on your seat. But we'll talk about H scenes in a minute. But unlike 9-9, where the highlight is the cast and heroines besides the protagonist, in Criminal Border, Itsuki definitely steals the show. It's always fun to read a story with well done character development, especially in a slow burner genre such as visual novels, because the gradual changes that happen to a character throughout the plot can turn them into a completely revitalized character by the end. That's Itsuki. So far. Itsuki's progression from pathetic and scared into a man shaped by the criminal underworld is a treat to watch, and I'd recommend Criminal Border just for that. Especially given what we've seen in part 3, I'll be waiting with bated breath for the final part. So yes, I do highly recommend this visual novel, but let's talk about a few more things. I've seen people criticize the art style here, but to be completely honest, I don't really get it. It's not a standard anime style, but it's not that far from it, all things considering, compared to other visual novels on the market that people love. I personally like it. I am slightly perturbed by Hina's pouting face though. It's a little too much. It reminded me of the anime Oni Ai, of all things, because in the first episode, the little sister approaches her brother's house with a smile that's just a little too much that it's off-putting. And so I get the same feeling from Hina here. Besides that, I quite like the art. I like looking at nice things, and Meryl is nice things, so it gets a pass from me. So word on the street, you's looking for some H scenes. In a visual novel about porn drugs, get out of here. I'm not an H scene guy, and as you can probably imagine, the H scenes here aren't going to be as impactful as a moage, for example, but they are still top quality. I suppose, if anything, you can argue they aid in Itsuki's development, making him closer into being a Chad, and Chad he do be. My man has a twosome with a wholesome girl. Vanilla? It ain't so bad. Part 2, my man has a threesome, good for him. A committed bride in this economy, what is he's nuts? Part 3, my man has a foursome, they ain't forces him. They say two's a party and three's a crowd, but for yous girls, I can't finish it. That's so stupid. But if it's yous girls, yous can be's my crowd. You've got a lot to live up on the H scene department, part 4. Rin, baby, yous got one job. Do us proud. The only other thing I've neglected to mention is the soundtrack, and I don't find it being as memorable as 9-9's, but I do absolutely love Kotoko's theme, so that's a plus. The only criminal thing about Criminal Border, besides its entire plot, is how criminally underrated it is. What are you waiting for? You need yous daddies to spell it out for yous? The plot is fantastic. Itsuki is a great protagonist. The heroines have their own role to play in their chapters and aren't forgotten about in other chapters. It's a well put together product. Part 4, or whatever it's called, Last Defense, don't disappoint me. You have one job. I'll be watching you. And speaking of watching, thanks so much if you stuck around this far in the video. I did 3 videos in a week, guys. It's all coming together. And you and I, dear viewer, can come together too in my next visual novel review. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think about Criminal Border, if you've read it, and if not, continue to tell me what I should read. Even if I don't respond, I promise I still read every comment. Ciao.